and that got me into music, and I became obsessed with music like since I was a kid, listening to Queen. Play these like underground concerts in London with like BDSM practices on stage way back in the early 70s. What I like to do in summer is go down below the earth to illegal basements in the city where everything's sweaty and like just be shirtless dancing to dark industrial electronic music.
I think the rave scene in Buenos Aires is one of the most special music scenes that exists globally.
Like everything that's like commercial, I fucking hate it, to be honest. Like I just cannot connect. So I can respect it, like, oh, it's well done. But it's like,
by the end of Onchain Summer, we will have distributed a total of 3 ETH to creators just in the country of Colombia.
I'm not feeling myself, so I want to explore these new things. It's like getting closer to who I am, but in the end, it's like another set of images that I need to go through to like find myself again.
The more I can break away from my ego, my emotions, and my thoughts and come back to the observations.
I sometimes call Sweets, I tell him that he's a CTO shaman.
In order for a mycelial colony to form, 2 hyphae need to be compatible and they need to be able to connect to share resources across.
The thing is, like, we never met IRL. We've never been physically in the same space ever. So all our friendship, like, we're just chatting on a daily basis about everything.
What's your favorite summer drink?
This is very boring, but like I would say water on my end.
A mango banana juice with water and no sugar.
Are you doing it yourself? Like, are you making it yourself?
I've been staying in Santa Marta. Well, I was in Santa Marta, Colombia in July during Onchain Summer, and every day Colombo and I would go over to the sea, and then we'd order a juice and you'd sit down and watch the sunset.
What's the first, the best, and the last album that you listened to?
I was 7 years old, I think, or 8 years old. My parents would play like Enya, Kitaro, Vangelis, Genesis, Phil Collins. And the first album I remember listening to it like myself, like playing it when I was like 8. It's Greatest Hits 2 by Queen, which was like my first favorite band. And that got me into music. And I became obsessed with music like since I was a kid, listening to Queen. The last album I listened to was the first album by Chris and Cozy, who are members of Psychic TV and Throbbing Gristle. So like 2 very like innovative bands from the 70s from England. Like they were kind of like pioneers in industrial music and very like strange stuff. So they were into like BDSM, you know, and stuff like that. They would play these like underground concerts in London with like BDSM practices on stage, but like, you know, way back in the early 70s and stuff like that. And they were also into the occult and, you know, practitioners of magic. So that's the last album that I listened to, this morning, actually.
Does it have something to do with the channel you created recently?
Yes, it is connected to the channel I created, the Magick channel with a K at the end, which is like to make a difference in between illusionism and real magic. So real magic would be like alchemy, you know, all these occult like practices. And yeah, in that channel, I'm basically sharing stuff about magic, the occult and stuff like that, but a lot of like the intersection of music and magic. The idea came because Marja, who's a community member from Sonata, she's also into magic. So we've been talking about it on Warpcast, and she shared a song by Psychic TV, which is like one of the bands I was just mentioning. And I said like, yeah, I'm going to launch this channel.
What about you, Sweets?
First album I remember listening to was with my mom in the car, a white Infinity with a CD in the player. It was the studio by Phil Collins, so shared background of Phil Collins being played by my parents. First album that I really resonated with was Control, CTRL, the album by SZA. It was in 2017 that I encountered the album, and I ended up naming one of my cats Solana after SZA. And the latest album that I've been listening to is Vigilante by Hector Lavoe and Willie Colon. Very famous salsa album that's just been resonating with what I've been going through recently emotionally. And
apart from Phil Collins, I also listened to that, I think, when I was younger. Yay.
Oh, Phil Collins, yeah. I love Phil. Still love Phil to this day. I still listen to Phil.
The things that you said about the first album, both, I feel like we all had the same set of albums at home with parents.
Yes.
I think.
Enya, Genesis, Queen.
I also remember a lot of Barry White, but my parents loved him.
I don't know where, I don't know why. No, 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 no. Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
like
Barry White.
what's your favorite summer live gig?
What I like to do in summer is like I like to go down below the earth to illegal basements in the city where everything's sweaty and like just be shirtless dancing to dark industrial electronic music. That's what I like doing during the summer.
Sounds refreshing.
Dark basements.
I'm gonna be boring. I piggyback on Sebas for everything fun in my life. He texts me, or we meet every Thursday for coffee. So yesterday we had our coffee meetup, and during that he always tells me there's this event Friday, there's this event Saturday, there's this event Sunday, and so I just lean on him. He sends me fun events, and I just show up. Last week he invited me to an event. It's outside, right outside of the H line here in Buenos Aires. It's a place I've been to a lot of times. There's been ETH Argentina, there's been big conferences. It's usually this space that's like family, a couple bars, a couple restaurants, there's a Starbucks. But you show up, there's music, there's DJs, there's dudes in black glasses, cut off shirts, neon clothes, fancy sparkly stuff. Sebastian's there in his cape up front as always, and it's people smoking cigs all over or smoking whatever all over, and it's very refreshing to have. I just came back from the US, and in the US you cannot smoke at any restaurant or at any event, let alone inside at a music event. And then to just come back to Buenos Aires, people are doing whatever the fuck they want, wherever they want, just having a good time, being their big, bold, like weird selves. I think the rave scene in Buenos Aires is super unique, and it's one of the most special music scenes that exists globally, in my opinion.
At least
We'll show you
just
around. Come, let us know, and we'll show you around the city.
Is there something like a music genre, something that you despise?
Yeah, I despise. I mean, despise is it's a very like strong word, but there is a lot of music that I don't like. So like everything that's like commercial, I fucking hate it. To be honest, like I just cannot connect. So I can respect it, like oh, it's well done, but it's like fuck that shit. So music that speaks about like happiness, having a good time, everything that's about happiness and having a good time in music, I kind of dislike that because I don't feel it reflects like what's happening in the world. You wanted spicy takes. I kind of feel it's not art. I feel it's basically they are artists like creating products actually, just like following a formula, and I really like despise that, and I despised it since I'm a kid. But to me, like what I don't like about like artists like Taylor Swift is like, in my opinion, she creates products. She probably like she's an artist and everything, right? She composes her music, and but like I feel it's designed to be successful. So maybe both apply. It is art maybe because she's an artist and she like creates her music, but she's also creating products, right? At the same time.
I try not to focus on what I dislike. What you focus on grows. Something that causes me dissonance is when I'll turn on music by like Beautiful Chorus or Andre 3000's New Blue Sun or some like ambient music that can get me in flow. And then Spotify will throw on some Zen music that has affirmations or lyrics, and I start hearing someone saying, "You are beautiful and you are lovely." And I think that's more of an algorithm, less of a genre, and more of like I picked an album that was supposed to amplify me in an ambient mode, and now I'm getting affirmations that I wasn't looking for. So I don't think it's that I dislike it, it's more that it wasn't the feed that I was looking for.
In kind of continuing this conversation, when it comes to the Latin music and the popularity of the Latin music, like that it became like in the last few years, like, and I see how J-Lo and all the artists that were originally also like with the Latin origin, they were never singing in their career before in Spanish, but then because this kind of became a thing, now they kind of go back to their roots, I guess.
I don't know the why, and I would love to hear Sebas's point. The observations I've made is I work with a musician called Excelencia. He's based in Miami right now, but he's originally from Puerto Rico and Cuba, and he has been blowing up. Excelencia has been blowing up on both traditional music as well as on-chain. Traditional music, nobody's earning from streaming anymore, not even people like Snoop Dogg, but on-chain, Excelencia is earning for each song in his last album, El Niño Estrella, he's earning about $80,000 per song, which is just way up from the last cycle. And so he has continued to document the rise of Latin music. However, the past 10 years of his reggaeton career, he's just seen it go from not being important to, like Taco was saying, it's now very much in the limelight. Not only are the musicians that are dropping music from Latin countries doing it in Spanish, they're like coming back to those roots, but they're receiving a lot of support for doing content in Spanish.
I suppose like I'm gonna be a little cynical. I suppose that the US market got like they had too much stuff of the already existing stuff, so they started like, marketing Latin music. Basically, that's what I think. But I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in the traditional music segment, but I think like the US dictates a lot of like the global taste and the global reach for a lot of artists, and like there's a like huge Latin community in the US that has been growing and growing and growing, and I kind of feel they've been like marketing Latin music for those people, and there's also a need for a lot of people in that country for like music that represents them more closely. It makes me really happy that there's more Latin music at the global like scenario. So like Excelencia and reggaeton, like Sweets was mentioning, and also like there are a lot of like big like Argentinian artists, like I don't know, like Visa Rap, for example. So I think it's really exciting and refreshing that the Latin like vibe is, becoming more global. But at the same time, I think that Latin music in general, it's only like just a cut up. So basically, I feel that it's more of what the US considers Latin than what Latin really is. I mean, not really is. I mean, it includes what they include, but there's a lot of other things, right? So like, for example, I don't feel identified with like reggaeton or any of those like styles. I respect them. I think they're great, but I don't listen to that music. I listen to like local people who play like analog synthesizers and make like, industrial electronic music. And they are Latin people too, right? So it's like, I think it's really like just a tiny window into what Latin American identities are. I think it's more than that, and it's maybe more closely related to like Puerto Rico, Mexico. Like, I feel that's a little more of like what we see globally when talking about Latin music. What do you think, Sweets, about like what I was saying about like Latin American like communities and population becoming more prominent in the US, and like, like these people already have kids, so there are lots of families and stuff like that. Do you think that could have an influence of like, more people listening and wanting to like, listen to Latin music in the US?
Yeah, I'd agree. There's a lot of drive from the USA in terms of the growth of Latin music recently. But Pau isn't from the US. Have you felt as well, Pau, that it's been US influenced, or have you felt it's more of like a global popular trend rising?
I think it's difficult to tell because it kind of seems to be very related. I feel like the US is also Europe, and Europe is also the US in this case. But I do think that I've seen more and more like smaller artists pop up in the European space, let's say Spanish artists from Spain. It's hard to say.
I
For
can share
myself,
one
like
last thing
amongst
that
that European Union, it feels a bit more from the US side that I'm kind of learning from that side of the world actually about these artists, right? But I don't know, like the European Union could be different because I think the diversity of the culture, and then even who are the popular artists, like let's say in the UK or somewhere in the Europe, could be different that I don't even maybe know.
I've seen like that you're mentioning this, like I like there's been a huge change like in Argentina, for example, like since I was a kid until now. So now like the big stars in music in Argentina, they are all Argentinian, or most of them, and they are like a new generation of like 20-year-olds. Like, so you have like Dillom, you have Catriel, you have Paco Amoroso, you have like Was, you have like Nati Peluso. All these people, they play arenas for like 50-60,000 people. And I don't know if they were tapped in the global market. Kind of, maybe Paco Amoroso and Catriel a little bit. But like in Argentina and across South America, like these local artists, they are fucking huge. So that's been super refreshing. And that, I'm not sure if it's connected to like the US like thing that I was just saying, but it's something more local that, people feel more represented with like people who like, look like you, think like you, have similar experiences to you. And it's been like Argentina was always heavily influenced by like rock music. So we kind of like invented rock in Spanish, and we have like a super like big tradition in rock music since the 60s. So growing up, it was a lot of like Argentinian rock, like that was popular. And over time, like all these other musicians are more like urban music, mix of hip hop, trap, rap, all these things, but with a national flavor as well. And it's been like super refreshing. Or Visa Rap, this guy I was mentioning, they become like super huge. So like I don't know what the reason for that is, but I fucking love it.
What does onchain summer mean for you? Honest opinions.
It's the most exciting time to be on chain. It's when all the activity happens, all the new products get dropped, all the incentives come out. It feels like we have maximum creators creating, maximum builders building, and maximum questions from normie friends asking, what does this mean and how do I participate?
It also has like a great marketing component to it, which I think is needed to like, make crypto grow. And there's only one thing I don't love about it, and it's that we call it summer, but like in a lot of parts in the world, it's actually winter. you know so I feel that's a little like it's always been the case, like centered around like the northern hemisphere. It's just a little detail.
By the end of on-chain summer, I or we.
So the end of on-chain summer is what, like around like
This is the last month of on-chain summer. I'll start with one, and if we want to keep going. By the end of on-chain summer, we will have distributed a total of 3 ETH to creators just in the country of Colombia. Before the end of on-chain summer, we still need to distribute another $1,000 to creators across the country of Colombia.
By the end of on-chain summer, we will have a new set of markets on Sonata that will blow everyone's mind.
Spicy. What's your highest priority right now?
Highest priority, I have to be honest, is becoming myself. So that's my great work in this life, becoming more of myself and becoming more aware of all the mechanic reactions and mechanic ways perceiving reality. And I'm in a quest to become a more conscious person and become more of myself as I grow older, and try to eliminate all these like mechanic reactions and mechanic perceptions of reality to be a more free individual.
Did you feel less yourself and then maybe influenced by something before?
So I feel that as you grow, like you have like two different people inside you. So you have like your real essence, and then you have the person that's shaped by culture, by society, by images that get ingrained into your brain, by fears, by expectations, by dreams. All these things shape who you think you really are. But who you really are is like a lot of times below that, because all those things are basically creating mechanic reactions in your consciousness and the way you process emotions and the way you process reality and you process relationships. So I kind of feel that I'm trying to like deconstruct all that part that doesn't come with you, but it's actually ingrained into your brain as you grow. So I would say there are sometimes I feel like myself. They are brief. And what I'm trying to do is make those little moments of like lucid, existence when you're really present, make them longer every time until eventually I can just be myself all the time. It's a very, very difficult path. I'm not sure if I will make it, but yeah, it's like I would say the great work of my life.
I see it like there is also another thing, which is like, let's say that you understand like who you are, but you're also changing your, when you're growing, or like whatever influences your inner personality, and then realizing that you actually changed, and then your behaviors have to change, and accepting maybe it process of consciously looking inside of you and seeing what actually changed. I don't know if you experience this, because I think like as we're living in kind of you proceed like if year after year you're doing something, maybe you're pursuing your career, projects, whatever it is, like relationships, but internally you're kind of like actually already a different person that you were like 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think that happens a lot of times. I think that's one of the there are a lot of like use. So I think like it's not just like, so what you're saying, I identify with that. It resonates with me, and it has happened to me like many times. Like, I think I need to like transform myself. I'm not feeling like comfortable here or whatever, not comfortable, but I'm not feeling myself. So I want to explore these new things. But I also think that when I explore all those new things, like it's not really me either. It's like getting closer to who I am, but in the end, it's like another set of images and another set of like experiences that I need to go through to like find myself again. So I kind of feel like I'm reading a couple of books now. So I kind of feel like I'm multiple persons in a single day. So like this person who's speaking now is like one person who like speaks, in a podcast and is aware of that, and it's aware I want to be funny because you asked me for spicy takes, blah, blah, blah. So I'm being a little mechanic. I'm not being a free individual in the end. So is it really me? Or it's one of the me's that's taking power of myself at this moment? Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a little esoteric.
So I think that we don't have by nature just one personality. I think we have maybe one set of core values that doesn't change. Maybe it doesn't even change over the course of your lifetime. But then you might have multiple personalities at different points in time. I can talk about myself. I was super shy when I was growing up, and this kind of went away by the age of like 14 or 15, when I really wanted to be cool, and I wanted to be like this one person in school that was always like so popular and had so many friends and was so like open and always like making jokes and stuff. And at some point it became so natural that it just became me, and I am myself, just with a new set of, or maybe a new layer of personality that became me. So the question is, maybe it goes both ways and it becomes you, and then it's not separable anymore. So that's one thing. And the second point I forgot. Oh yes,
Sweets?
Okay, before Sweets, what's your
I think Sweets did you reply.
priority?
What was the initial question? Sorry, I went in that like esoteric ramble about like...
I want to put a question on top of that
for you both, which is, would you say that Sonata is helping you to achieve this, highest priority in your case, for example, Sebas, that you want to get closer to yourself? And for you, Sweetman, what's your highest priority?
I'm feeling a lot of joy that y'all have pulled that question out of Sebas and that you've documented it. Sebastian and I have been getting coffees for over a year now, and each coffee is different. But yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about the books we've been reading. We've both been resonating on the lessons. I've been reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the most important thing I've been focusing on is detaching from the emotions and being the observer. Like right during this call, for example, I feel things like joy or anxiety or thinking about something else. And so the practice I'm trying to work on is catching myself as soon as I start to think or feel, and then go into the observation of it. I'm feeling this emotion. I am thinking this thing. And as soon as I become the observer of the task, I've now disconnected from that ego, the thinking mind, and I'm able to come back to a more pure space of creation. And so with the work I do as a developer, being able to detach from the emotions and the ego and come back to observing reality. The last mental model I'll throw in is there's a designer, Neri Oxman, who works at MIT, and she's released this mental model. You know her?
I was listening to the chat she was on the podcast of Lex Friedman.
Brilliant creator. And she's developed this chart, the Krebs cycle of creativity. And it breaks down the 4 quadrants of engineering, science, art, and design. And there's a polarity that has engineering and science on one side and art and design on the other. And the polarity is on the science side, science and engineering, the side of the polarity is nature. And on the side of art and design is the polarity of culture. So on one end of the spectrum, you have nature, which is science and engineering. And on the other side, you have the polarity of culture, which is art and design. And so the more I can break away from my ego, my emotions, and my thoughts and come back to the observations, I think myself as an engineer and as a scientist, I'm able to record the laws of nature a little bit better, which helps me both in my personal life as well as professionally in Sonata to build products from a more grounded, intentional place rather than fueled by my emotions, fueled by my thoughts, fueled by like my ego.
I can really hear what you're describing, because you sound very centered, you sound very reflected and very observant and aware of your own behavior, maybe the way you speak.
Thank you for the affirmation.
I sometimes I'm going to say this, Sweets. I sometimes call Sweets, I tell him that he's a shaman, a CTO shaman. Yeah.
Do you guys have rituals, like team or personal rituals that you can share?
I don't know if we have team rituals. Like maybe we should, Sweets. Maybe we should. But I'm a practitioner of magic, basically, and of the occult. So I do a lot of rituals. Like this week, for example, I was in a collective ritual, 5 hours ritual, focused on like the energy of Venus, the planet. So like 15 people during a very long ritual in this like magic abbey that I go to every Tuesday. So I would say rituals are like a main part of my life. I do them like not every week, but most weeks at least I do like or a ritual or like a magic meditation or astral travels, stuff like that. Yeah, I do a lot of that stuff.
My rituals typically revolve around the full moon. I typically align a lot of the rituals in my life around the moon cycles. I do have daily rituals, but I think most people would probably call those more habits. I'd love to hear the rituals that y'all practice.
I don't have rituals personally because I actually, when I realized that I'm doing something on repeat, like even like the order of things, like let's say in the morning, and as soon as I caught myself that I'm doing it every day, I'm deliberately changing this order because I have ADHD. So like even if I go somewhere, like let's say, I don't know, the store, I need 10 different paths to get to this same store. Like I would find the longest one, even if it's not the convenient one, because just the feeling of repeating things dissatisfies me. Some weird feeling that I just don't like. It gives me discomfort. I even break habits as soon as I realize that I do have a habit. I'm just gonna break it and I do not have it anymore.
I really love that. I'm actually starting to practice that because I'm the opposite. I usually like go to the same cafe, same route, blah, blah, blah. But I've been reading as well, like Sweets was saying, I'm reading this other book by Upensky. So he speaks about like being aware and all these things. And one of the things he's they say in this book is like, you should like do things different to what you always do. And that will help you be, it can help you be more aware of yourself, like observe yourself. So like if you always sit, stand up, if you always stand up, sit, all these things. So I've been trying, I started practicing what you just mentioned. So different routes, you know, like all these things so I can have more, so it's easier for me to observe myself.
Well, sports, which in my case, I wouldn't say it's a habit because I always switch things up as well. When I'm traveling, obviously, I find other ways to move, like go for runs, do yoga. And I think my most important new rituals in the last few months has been yoga. It's my form of meditation. Okay, you like yoga too.
So would you say our like Thursday coffee is a ritual, maybe? We've been doing it
Yes.
like, for a long time.
Yes, that's 100% a big ritual in my life.
Yeah, me too. So that's a ritual that is also like part of Sonata as well. So it's like personal and Sonata both.
Did you know each other before you joined Sonata?
Yes. I had the blessing of getting to know Sweets here because like he lives like nearby my place. And I've been like in the Ethereum community here for a long time. And like there was this conference, Eat Latam, that was hosted 2 years ago, I think. And someone wanted to make a panel about music NFTs. And they said like, Sebas, well, you're the only person we know that's into music NFTs. We have this guy, Sweetman, who's into that. So like, can you coordinate a panel? So it was like Sweetman, a couple other guys. And I was like, yeah, of course. I was just getting into music NFTs. Sweets was already like an OG. So he had been, I don't know, like the first engineer at Mint Songs and, you know, a lot of other projects. And so I didn't know that much about music NFTs, but we like got together, I think, to coordinate that panel. And we became friends, basically. We said like, hey, let's like go for a coffee. And that coffee turned out like, you know, to be like, we always get together every Thursday. So we would speak about like music, you know, about crypto at large, about like spiritual things, about like philosophy, all these things. And we started like traveling together. So we went to NFT NYC a couple of years ago and we stayed together in NYC. And we were not like working together, but like eventually when the idea of Sonata came, it was like, I feel like super organic, like, hey, Sweets, like, do you want to like be a co-founder? And he was like, yes.
It's been one of the most impactful relationships I've had over the past few years. I find my relationships with people are like planetary cycles. Like you'll meet someone, you'll cross a path, you'll have an eclipse, and then you don't see them for a while until they gravitate back around. And some of them are much longer and others shorter. But a lot of my relationships and friendships are impactful in one dimension of life. But like Sebastian was saying, I've been able to witness Sebas go through a couple rebirths in his career and in his personal life. He's been able to witness me go through a couple rebirths. We've both been able to help each other through it. We've been able to work together professionally as well as geographically, like going to different parts of the world and just hanging out, as well as musically going out to events on the weekend. There's not many people I can live with in the same house and still be productive and be able to get work done the relationship we have had has felt like very in the relationship of mushrooms and hyphae. Like in order for a mycelial mat to form, or in order for a mycelial colony to form, two hyphae need to be compatible and they need to be able to connect to share resources across. And I feel like a lot of the mycelial net I've been building, I'm able to connect with people where there's a light line of nutrients that flow back and forth. But Sebastian and I have just felt like a very strong click of the hyphae where resources just flow on perfectly matching across like emotionally, career, musical. It has felt like a very synergistic relationship. Not that we're both like the exact same, because I think it's very easy to tell that we're not the exact same, but the connection has been very organic and very impactful for myself, I think for Sebas as well, and definitely on the products that both of us are building.
I would say it's not. It has been impactful. It is impactful in my life. Like, yeah, and like even our coffee yesterday, right? Like that conversation like went really deep, and it was like even that single conversation was like super impactful. So I would say it's been impactful, and it still is, right? Yeah, it's like I would say like I've been like going to this therapist who's also an astrologist, and he's into Jung instead of Freud. So he speaks to me about this idea of when you meet with someone, it's destiny. It's always destiny, because there's something that you will learn from yourself by spending time with that person. And like Sweets was saying, you have people with whom like you connect for longer periods than others. In our case, I think that our relationship is connected to this like fate, but not fate in the sense of like, oh, you were supposed to, this thing. But we get together because our consciousness can help us grow through interacting. And I think that's being the case with Sweets. And I'm like incredibly grateful for, our friendship.
Throwing the question back to you two, did you both know each other before you started doing these series and building your projects together?
We do actually, but we actually have a funny part of even our friendship. Like we met during the pandemic because we were doing this master's degree in computer science at UCL, but it was pandemic, so it was everything remote. So no one was on site, and we were in different countries, and it was in 2021. Yeah, so we started together. This is kind of the time, I think, the summer when I got into the NFTs, and again, we were kind of like online friends. So I was sharing with her what I'm doing, getting her into it. She got into it as well. And since then, we're continuously working on different ideas and projects together, kind of like based on the different interests that we have and the similarities in probably from the cultural perspective, because we always share like from the music side, from the fashion side. I love cinema. She's not really very much into it, but I still continue doing it. The art, the things that kind of inspire me like personally, like I'm really into music from the 80s and 70s, like the rock scene of that time. She's more into that, like Latin music, and she kind of shares things like that. But the thing is, like, we never met on IRL. We've never been physically in the same space ever. So all our friendship on a daily basis, we have chats, and it's not like the planned thing, like we're just chatting on a daily basis about everything, about the personal things, about the work, about the things that we're doing and the ideas that like we're working on. We tried so many different things. So
what are your top 3 channels on Webcast? I want to jobs.
So Sonata is one of my top channels. Yeah, I have to say it, but I really spend a lot of time in Sonata. It's really all like music channels. I like Sonata, I like Soundscapes, and I really like Album of the Day.
On my side, top 3 channels are Nouns, Base Builds, and Zora. Starting with Zora, it is the best place for me to find what the team's working on before they announce it publicly or announce it on Twitter as an engineer. And then Nouns and Base Build are both channels that reward you for participating in the channel. So if you just post noggles or if you retweet stuff that's nounish, you'll get rewarded in their weekly rounds with their Nouns token.
Why are you building on the Farcast?
We chose to build on Farcaster because we think that it will be a key driver of the next bull market, and it will be one of the layers of the new consumer crypto industry that is just getting started. And the idea that it's like an open social protocol, and that we could leverage that into our own client or app was super powerful. Farcaster will be one of the key drivers for consumer crypto during the next bull market, and we want to like leverage that into Sonata.
I built on Lens before I started building on Farcaster. I saw that Nouns was paying 3 teams $100,000 to build clients, and Sebas reached out to me with an idea.
Who do you nominate to join us next?
You want spicy takes, right? There's someone I really like who I met like on a Warpcast, but she's not a builder or like, so I don't know if you want. I would invite Marja, who's part of the Sonata community. I think it's like a very interesting individual.
Okay, I would love to know her username, account name. Would you give us like a little bit maybe brief about her in terms of what makes her interest, like what we could talk about with her? I would love to diversify because after this series, we're still going to continue our shots, and we do think of how to improve it, how to diversify it.
She's a great example of like underground culture still being alive in a social platform. So like Warpcast is still like a small like social platform, right? So like there are things that still exist. So like when you go to like the big social platforms like Twitter and all that stuff, like most of the most like underground, or I would say like stuff that's not mainstream, like kind of disappears. So those voices kind of disappear. And I think someone like Marja, she brings this like very interesting mix of like weirdness, music expertise or nerdness. She's also like into the study of magic and the occult and these things. Weird in a good way, I'm saying it, about culture and music. So I think she's a really interesting mind. Another recommendation I have, if it's someone like, if you all want a builder, like I would invite like maybe Jack Spallone. He's building Oscillator, which is a pretty cool project as well. It's like an open music project as well. And he also has this interesting view about like, you know, building a permissionless industry for music, which hasn't been the case in the past.
What about you, Sweetman?
Latasha, Floor, and Benito. Latasha is based in Brooklyn. No, I believe LA now, but originally from Brooklyn. Top music creator, great person to get an insight on one of the people that drove the growth of Zora, and culturally just still very relevant as she left Zora and is now building her own brand independently. Floor is an engineer in Neutro, based here in Buenos Aires. I don't meet many female developers, let alone one that is kind of like leading in a community like Neutro. So she has been teaching me a lot about code, and I've been working with her over the past week or so. And Benito is a creator down here in Buenos Aires. She led the project that was the only winner of We Love the Arts from Argentina. There was big feedback in the super chain for We Love the Arts that nobody that was Spanish speaking won. She ran the only group that did win out of Argentina and out of Spanish speaking countries. So she organized the team, she created the project, and she won where nobody else that was Spanish speaking did. So I think all three of those are very strong builders, artists, that hopefully brings some diversity to the...
Nito, she's one of the moderators of the Album of the Day channel, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you so much for all the nominations. Are you up for a challenge?
Of course.
Which cards you would like me to open for each of you?
I want the one on the right. I would name it fluorescent green.
A snap of your favorite summer live gig, which can be any type of concert, festival. I kind of assume that you're not allowed to take pictures in a lot of the places you go to.
I can take pictures in a couple of the places I go to, yeah. I could.
Okay.
I could.
For sweets.
Let's go blue.
If Sonata was a drink, which one would it be? Then thank you so much for joining for this great conversation.
Thank you for having us.